Good evening, Rick. Would you believe it's Dr. Doom? What's on your evil mind? Oh, you insulting tongue and mock my words well.
How about this rumor that you are really hired, Mr. Stark?
Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host for tonight, Roddycat, and you can find me at Roddycat at Roddycat on Twitter, News Nerds Need on Twitter, the News Nerds Need Reddit, and CB Caps Instagram. And with me tonight, as always, is the man, the myth, the fellow, one sound effects master, Agent_70, that you can find at Agent_70 at Instagram and Twitter.
And I'm back at home base in Brooklyn, New York, where we have about 3 to 4 inches of snow on the ground.
Yes. So if you are in snow-covered areas, like our other laser-focused, laser-eyed gentleman that is with us tonight.
Tune into the video to see this. That's what's important.
Definitely. He's going to be shooting you with his ruby lasers pretty soon. It is PEC_Dirt.
Yeah, and today I'm coming at you with 5.3 inches of snow.
Yes. And he is also coming at you at PCN_Dirt on Twitter. Also, Pop Culture Net on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com, and ineedcomics.com. So, and also, as we're finding out, soon to be coming back to a few second video streaming place for his reviews at some point soon in the near future.
Yeah. Look out for that. Eventually, when it rolls out, but it hasn't rolled out yet. So
yes. So next spring, look out, folks. All right. Let me get to the spiel first before I get to what we're going to start off with, and that is Tim Dog 98. That's Tim DOGG 98, who is not with us tonight, but is always with us in spirit. You can find him at Tim DOGG 98 on Twitter. The KLIQ Nation, that's DKLIQ NATION on Twitter, and CB Cron Twitter, thekliqnation.com, and of course, comic book resources where you can go find all his writings. And you can find this podcast on Google Play, Apple iTunes, Spotify now.
That's right.
One I had a link in this thing, but apparently it disappeared. But anyway, it doesn't matter because it's not on the video. And also the Coastal of the Podcast SoundCloud link. You can also find us on the network CSPN.us. That's the Coastal of the Podcast Network. You can go check it out at that site I just previously mentioned, CSPN.us.
Do it today.
Along with a bunch of other fine programmings. You can also go to shop.cspn.us and get some merch from this fine program and others on the network. And so with that out of the way, folks, it is with heavy heart. And if you haven't been checking out the news or been on social media lately, that we have finally lost a legend, folks. Well, another legend, I'd say, because we have lost many a legend in the last few years, much less this year. Yes, folks, one Stan Lee has died, and I can't remember his actual name, but
Stanley Lieber.
Yeah. Thank you. I knew one of y'all would catch me on that one.
I mean, technically, Stan Lee was his real name.
Right.
Well, yeah, but that was not his given name. So,
right.
But nevertheless, he has passed on a few days prior to this recording. At the ripe old age of 99, he was still
95.
Yes, kicking to the best of his ability anyway. I know he had some significant eyesight loss and whatever other, all of the other stuff that we have been talking about on the Stan Lee Watch. So his later years have been pretty much as interesting as his early years, to say the least.
Yeah, his health has been compromised for a while now, and obviously, with the passing of his late wife, Joan, last year, it's almost a year. It's almost a year since she's been
right,
and that was obviously a huge blow to him. I wanted to just cover a couple of talking points before we moved on to the rest of the show. We discussed off the air just before this whether or not any of us had a chance to meet Stan Lee, and it seems like I'm the only one that had a chance to meet him, and unfortunately, it was very recent, and it was after the monetization of Stan's appearances really got into high gear. It was at the point, and it was at the point where he was a little bit more frail, so you really couldn't touch him. Like, I would have loved to give this dude a huge bear hug, and I'm sure a lot of people would have. But he's 95. It's kind of tough to put a bear hug on someone like that. So it was probably all for the best. But he was in frailer health, but he still had a lot of energy. You saw some of the energy that he displayed in the cameos that he was filming for the various Marvel movies when I saw him last in 2016. But it unfortunately did seem like the signing that I was at was much more of a factory assembly line than anything else, and that was the saddest thing I remember. But I can tell you that what I did for myself was to try to jazz it up a little, because I felt it was sad, that it had come to this. Like, this dude was, at the time 93, or maybe on his way to 94, and it was something that I kind of took upon myself when I got up to him. Like, oh, this sucks. I got to talk to him. Like, the people in front of me didn't say anything to him. They just passed the books. They might have said like a quiet thank you, but I said a few things to him, and I got him to smile at me because he looked up. He was like, someone actually said something. I'm like, this is awesome, and I'm gonna go into what I did and what I talked about in a Instagram post that I'm still drafting. Putting some thought into it. I didn't want to be just shoot off the cuff right away. This does take a little bit of time, so I'll do more on that. So be on the lookout for that.
Indeed. And I mean, we do have some other news about the well wishes, or not the well wishes, but the condolences on his passing, and anything else. Dirk, do you have any?
Yeah, do you have anything special with that?
I mean, he's just someone who's kind of been ubiquitous with the idea of comics for so long that it's odd to have him gone. He was the, if you will, the diplomat for nerddom for the rest of the world. So whenever anybody thought about, comics or the big blockbuster superhero movies or whatever, it's like Stan Lee was always interwoven into that in one way or another. And in fact, some of my earliest memories, of course, are watching the Saturday morning cartoons, and he did a lot of the intro voiceovers and stuff for Spider-Man, His Amazing Friends.
Right.
So it's like his personality was always interwoven into everything. And I didn't know the guy personally, obviously. It's not like we hung out on weekends. I never, traveled with him to the Hamptons for the holidays or anything like that. But you still, you miss him. Like,
Well, you also felt like you knew him, or at least the character of Stan Lee.
Well, and it's you do feel that there's a sadness that he's not going to be there anymore. But part of it's also because, comics were his life. He enjoyed them so much. He had an infectious quality of getting other people excited, and enamored with them. He could go to he would be at some, red carpet event, and you could see him talking to some other celebrity or somebody who, probably really didn't care, but they saw this old guy who was really energetic and was fun to talk to and was really excited about talking about all this stuff. And he got other people interested. And so losing someone like that, like, you feel a sadness because he was such a nice, friendly guy, and he was always, open and willing to talk. But, you realize that you're really losing somebody for the whole world of comics. Just the idea of someone being out there on a personal level, evangelizing for the idea of printed, comic pages, and that person is gone. And I don't really know that there's someone. Dan DiDio is just not the guy who's going to pick up that, title and run with it. So
right.
You just know that there's going to be
a void.
Yeah, a void, and just kind of a loss of this energy that would always kind of follow him around. It's just, there's no one there to grab that ring and run with it. Yeah,
I was going to mention that fact. It was like we can basically say that we are pretty much at the end of an era, with his passing. Like like you just said, there's not that many people, who were like him, who were out there evangelizing, and then there's really no one like it. So we have, truly come to a changing of the times.
Yeah.
With his passing.
Did you guys grow up reading any of any old reprints of like stuff that Lee actually wrote?
Oh, I had all of those.
The digest sized.
Well, no, not the digest. But there was a Marvel. Was it Marvel Premiere or something that reprinted all the old stuff?
Okay.
I don't think Premiere. I'm trying to remember what it was called, but there was some series that came out in the 70s that reprinted all of his early stuff, and a lot of them were like the thicker. They were regular comic size, but they were probably 60, 80 pages or, something like that reprinted a lot of that old stuff. So that's how I became familiar, because I was more of a Superman, Batman, Justice League kid growing up, but someone somewhere in my extended family had bought a bunch of these or whatever. And then at some point they were handed down to us. So we had them, like in a dresser in the toy room, you'd pull out the drawer. There was a whole bunch of Classics Illustrated, and there was a whole bunch of these old Marvel reprints. And so that, I remember being at a certain point, I can't tell you exactly how old I was, but at some point I realized, oh, wait, the guy from the Spider-Man cartoon who's always doing the introductions, this is the same guy who wrote the book. At some point I made that connection, hey, that's the same guy, and then sure enough, that same guy would appear just again and again and again over the years. Every time something would come up with comics, what he was,
Right. I mean, my exposure to his writing, his actual, creative writing, was through those digests that you could get at the book fair at school. Right? You might see them in the library, but they were little pocket-sized digests, and they reprinted certain comics. And I distinctly had a run of Fantastic Four issues. They weren't the early stuff, but they actually, the ones that I distinctly remember, I forget what issue numbers they are in real life, but they involved the creation of Adam Warlock. And there was some, phenomenal stuff in there. And, Stan Lee was dropping SAT words in the middle of his comics. And, like I said, this is going to be part of the post that I'm still drafting. But I distinctly remember reading his work in old reprints, and I was just like, wow, there's an Asian brother writing these comics.
Because his name was Lee.
Exactly. And I was dumbstruck to see the modern, just real quick, in the modern comics that I ended up picking up, Stan would still have his soapbox, right, in the 80s. But they would have little caricatures of it. And I'm like, that's what Stan Lee sort of looks like.
The moment you said that, a story related just kind of popped into my head. But when I was working at Metropolis Comics in the mid-90s, they did the Deathmate event, which was the Valiant Image crossover thing.
Sure.
And we had a bunch of guys came to our store: Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee, Eric Larson, and then whoever the Valiant guys were, who obviously haven't retained the same amount of notoriety. But Jim Lee, I had a copy of Deathblow 1 that I wanted Jim Lee to sign.
Nice.
But I worked there, so I couldn't get in line, because I was working and I was shuffling the people through and I was making sure nobody was stealing stuff and whatever. So finally they got done, the line left, and Jim Lee got up to go use the bathroom, and I was trying to get his attention. I was like, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lee, and he wasn't responding, and someone shouts out, Jim, and he turns around like, what? And I was like, I was hoping you could sign this for me real quick. And he's like, were you shouting Mr. Lee? And he goes, the only Mr. Lees are Stan and my dad. And I just I still remember that to this day. It's like the only Mr. Lees are Stan and my dad.
That's a good one. Oh, but yeah, I mean, that's going to be part of my Instagram post, but yeah, like I got to tell you guys, reading those reprints and say presented by Stan Lee, I was like, wow. So, but anyway, if anyone, has anything else to add, like I said, I'm going to have something to say, on some personal points, in writing further down the road.
Yeah, well, the only other thing I've had to say is like, it's like you guys pretty much covered it. Like, I kind of came from it from slightly different angle because I read like Avengers and Fantastic Four back in the day, and like yes, I kind of started out with with I think 70s Batman and Justice League because of because of people in my family having them, G.I. Joe and stuff like that. But when I really started, it was like Avengers, Fantastic Four, that kind of stuff, and then the comics came. And then the cartoons came, and I was like, wait a minute, that's like I've seen that name before, or that name was talking about. And then it's like, oh, Stan Lee, so that's when put it together that way.
Listen, I equated Stan Lee with Bruce Lee, so I was just like, yo, this is awesome.
So hearing him on the cartoon, that I was like, right, man, this dude's behind the cartoons, and he's doing, behind the comics, and he's doing the cartoons. Saying that's pretty awesome. And then of course everything after that is just like one thing after the other. But yeah, like I said, he is a presence that will be missed, and like I said, we will have more news about that later on in the show. But at this point, let's get into the show proper, shall we?
I was just gonna say, just pour some out for Stan when you can.
Yes, indeed.
And I just found the comics I was thinking of was Marvel's Collector's Item Classics.
Nice.
Okay.
And they were just a series of reprints, mid to late 60s, that marked the first reprinting of many of the earliest Marvel stories.
Nice.
Fantastic Four, Iron Man, Doctor Strange, and the Hulk.
Nice. Cool.
All right. So anyway, that's what it was. I had to find it, or I was going to go nuts.
Of course.
I kind of wish, and I was looking for this because I wanted to put some of this on, but I was looking through YouTube to see if there was any of the voiceovers from the old cartoons on there, and I couldn't. Sadly, with the couple of looks I did, I couldn't find any because,
probably get taken down pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that too. But there weren't really ones. Like you can see the intros of shows, just not his the intro to the episode or whatnot. But although I think there is still probably an episode or two of Spider-Man and Amazing Friends up there, but I'm not sure if it had his voiceover on it. Either way, it is what it is. He will be missed. So let us get into the books of the week. And we are going from one side of the aisle to the other, the distinguished competition, but it's kind of sort of related. Not really, but with Mr. Miracle number 12. And we've had we've all come down. It's come down to this, folks. It is the last issue, and well, Dirt, you want to tell them how did it ended up for you?
I want to try not to spoil it the way CBR did.
Right.
Yes.
So I will try to remain somewhat vague, but so the whole series opened with this idea that Mr. Miracle is an escape artist, and he tried to make the boldest, grandest escape that he possibly could. And he may or may not have got in over his head in the whole situation. And the series seemed to be following the fallout of that event.
Right.
And there's been a lot of swaying back and forth in the story of trying to figure out is what is real and what is going on in his mind, and how much of what we're seeing is really happening, and how much is kind of like, if you've ever seen the movie Jacob's Ladder, there's a lot of stuff that goes on and you have kind of a hard time figuring out like what's reality and what's just a dream in his head, and then you get that twist shock ending. And this
might have been right all along.
Yeah, number 12 gives you that twist shock ending. And to me, it kind of deflates the whole thing, because what the series seemed to be was somewhat of a coming of age, in a way, where you've got this guy who never took anything too seriously, and then finally pushed himself to the limit and did something very serious, and now it may have been too much for him to handle, and instead, without spoiling,
right?
Instead, the entire story, instead, it's not a coming of age. It's more of a.
It might be a fake out.
He's man, like, again, I'm trying not to spoil, so it's real hard to figure out what I actually want to say without ruining it for anybody who either hasn't read it or maybe has been on the fence about reading it and they're thinking about getting into it. I don't like the ending, but I don't necessarily want to ruin it for someone who's going in for the experience, because the problem is the story has been well told. It's been well crafted. I love the artwork. I love the way that the story has been playing with the idea of certain things that may or may not be happening, and things that might be flashbacks or future flashes, or, you know, all in his mind or whatever. And the way it's juggled a lot of that stuff, that I've really enjoyed it. But then once we get now to the end, the twist kind of just kills it for me. And the story we thought we were getting all along is not the story that we really got, because of the way the twist is thrown out there. So once I get to the end and I look back, I don't like it as much as I liked it as I was going through it. I mean, I'm still glad I read it. You know, like I said, it was well crafted and well told, but it's just, it kind of deflates the character. It takes something away from the character, instead of adding, you know, some new corner to the mythos. It actually, it takes away some of the fun. And so I just don't like the twist. If I'd read up to like maybe 11 and stopped, or maybe read, you could easily take this issue and just rewrite the dialogue of 2 or 3 of the characters that appear kind of in his mind, that talk to him. If you change that dialogue, you could change the entire story. It would change the entire twist, and I think the story would have been a much better take on the character than, instead he's just become another one of those modern day, I don't want to say anti-heroes, but one of those heroes that just no longer has that heroic life, you know, as part of his mythos. Again, trying not to spoil anything.
No, I absolutely appreciate that. No, I do. Yeah. I definitely would have struggled recapping and kind of, you know, dancing around the edges. And I would ring the spoiler bell anyway, because some of what we're talking about is spoilery. But, you know, as Doug was saying, as PCN_Dirt was saying, it's been a good ride, and getting to this issue was fun and intriguing, and we wanted to see what exactly was going on, and to have whatever resolution we might have come to in the final issue of the series. Kind of, I use fake out, but it's the swerve. Everyone's looking for it, and we're still not 100% sure what's going on, and they leave it vague that way so that whoever picks up the character next can do whatever they feel they can do, with this character. So
I think the only thing that's vague is really his motivation. But as far as what has happened to him and what the fallout from the event was, I think this makes it clear in this issue that that kind of the worst outcome possible is the outcome, and this is his way of kind of coping with it. But they do leave it. I mean, they do leave it like the last line does leave it where another writer can come in,
right,
pick up from that point and
do some New God stuff. That's the thing.
Yeah, kind of reset it in a way.
Because there's a New God, there's an element of the New Gods mythos that, you know, after reading, you know, certain pieces online that we were referring to earlier, kind of helped me fill in some of my knowledge gaps and what I didn't necessarily pick up on in the story. And, you know, like I said, there's New Godsy things that they can do to just immediately pick up where the story leaves off, and, you know, pick up the ball and run with it.
Right. Kind of like the Thor Ragnarok stuff in the middle of Avengers Disassembled.
Right.
A decade back, where it's like they destroyed everything and they burned the tapestry, but those spiders forever knitting just start a new tapestry and history kind of resets. So it is possible that they can do something kind of similar along those lines.
Sure. Rod, do you have anything on this? Because I know you. We're sorry to kind of, you know, talk.
No. I mean,
in depth.
No. Like, you guys have read more of it than I have. I was kind of skimming it before we started, as we were talking. The only thing I will say is that I will definitely have to reread this again fully. But I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, you know, the journey is probably is just a part of as good a part of this than whatever the ending may be, and that should not be, you know, discounted. And I'm not saying that neither one of you did that,
right?
But, you know, the ending may be a letdown for what it is, but like the story still ends up being good. It's just like sometimes they don't, as we've said in the past, don't always stick the landing as nicely as you would want to, and that's kind of that may not be a thing here. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I just need to go back and reread it again, because it was like one part of me is like, okay, yeah, I shouldn't be surprised that it ended up like this, because like we kind of got the hints way early on that it was the case, but there was still enough there to be like, okay, it might not be this. But and then as the story went along, you know, you kind of stop thinking, like, well, this could be something else we don't know, and, you know, it could be up in the air, but this was still kind of lingering back there. But, you know, it seemed like they kind of gave it to us plain at the start in a way, but just kind of put the veil up until now. So, but yeah, so that's it. Like I said, I'll have to go back and read it, and I may change my mind about to say, like, they fucked up, it sucks, throw it out the window. But nah, I don't know if I do that.
Can we talk about a fun book this week?
We got bunches of fun books, because apparently we have read some stuff. So what you got?
Avengers number 10.
That was absolutely a fun book this week. You are absolutely right.
I was like, Dirt, you know, you actually, you know, it's actually worth picking this up, because it picks up on a lot of the things that were in Marvel Legacy.
Yeah.
I stopped when I stopped. I haven't read anything since.
You can pick this up.
And I'll put it this way, and I think you may have been missing a lot of, like, there was some action, but this kind of goes a place or two, and there's a lot of action. A lot of
goes with Marvel Legacy. What was Legacy?
It was the one shot that's basically kind of
the Avengers of 1 million BC.
Yeah, they kind of that thing came out. I think it was the Free Comic Book Day book.
I didn't like that. So what?
Yeah, but some of the payoff actually works.
Right. So to get into a little bit, so this is still dealing with the stuff with Namor, but this also brings into a way bigger picture, because there are some other groups that become involved in this issue, including other countries and other super teams.
Right.
Actually, we are starting to see that the U.S. itself is going to have a stake in the race. going forward. So this is like kind of going off of that.
Yeah,
but,
I'm gonna ring the bell because I want
go
to
ahead.
talk about it.
I don't know. I don't want to really spoil it for Dirt if he wants to actually, if he's going to read it.
Okay, wait. Have they done anything to address the fact now that Namor looks like one of the background guys from Twilight?
No.
Okay.
Although they do make jokes about it. So
yeah.
All right, so check it. So first things first, no, I'm kidding. David Marquez's art is such a tease in this because it's so crisp, it's so good, and then you hit McGinnis's art. It's like but that is the break in the story where we get to the confrontations. Everything that Marquez draws is set up, but the setup looks so good. But then when we get to the confrontations, they're not underwater. They're in like that underwater bubble sphere.
Yeah. So. Except for they still did that underwater talking thing at one part with a couple of the characters, and it still kind of put me off on that. But yeah, that was a side note.
So I saw your notes. I was like, and then I went back. I was like, no, they're not underwater completely.
No. Yeah, but I was talking about that one particular part. So. I got you. But so there's a big fight between Namor's people, the Avengers people, and then spoiler alert, the Soviet super soldier folks, the dark what they call them, I forgot what they call them, Dark Guard or whatever.
No, they're not the October Guard. That's G.I. Joe.
Yeah, the Winter Guard. The Winter Guard. Thank you. So all of the Ursa Major, Vanguard, Dark Star, all of those folks, Crimson Dynamo, they come into the fold because they want a piece of Namor themselves because of being in their water, and there's a big fight within. They basically come and help out the Avengers unintentionally, and it was interesting. All right, and we got something from Tim that which will come later, which.
It's timely.
That was interesting. Yeah. So there is that, and then on the outside of that, as that starts to get resolved, you see some stuff in the background from Russia and from U.S. because you see there's a conversation between Thunderbolt Ross and Steve, and Steve had a line which kind of tripped me out because he was like, you try to, because it was basically the Thunderbolt Ross was worried about being able to trust the Avengers. Now they moved to or supposedly working for Wakanda, but they moved into the
I was about to say they're on neutral ground basically. So.
Right. So and Steve was like, no, we work for the Earth. We don't work for US. And then Thunderbolt Ross was like, it's just trusting you basically. And Steve was like, well, if you're worried about the Hulk or whatever the case may be, wait till you see what I turn into if you come after the Avengers. And I thought about it, like, Man Wolf? No man?
Oh no.
So when he said that, that's what kind of made me think about that. And then there was a line a couple of panels later where Thunderbolt Ross was like, send in the agent, and made me think of that asshole. And I was like, no, please don't bring a U.S. agent back into this. Please.
That would make me buy the book. I would buy the book.
If John Walker was in there.
But it was not U.S. agent. In fact, it was another agent from a former division company, spies. Come on, don't make me spell it out. That comes into the picture with another group of superheroes that has been selectively picked by him. Well, heroes is a strong word for these people, given the last few years.
Listen, the twist at the end made me like it was so well done.
Yeah, so and then after that we get this one thing.
Like you said, it's a two-step twist.
Yeah, it's a few things going on in this book because after that whole thing. We get a little short story with Robert as Ghost Rider and Odin, which is kind of amusing in itself.
Right, which is definitely, like the whatchamacallit, the short stories at the end of the issue.
Right, which goes back into that 1 million BC stuff.
Exactly. There's also a tease in the last one of Yeah, it was about who the next rotating member might be.
Yes, and it is a former Mighty Avengers who technically wasn't, I guess, an official member of Avengers team. But when the person who found him, that being one Janet Van Dyne, aka Wasp, agent of Wakanda, as she said herself, which that was a weird thing to see. I'm like, huh, okay, is that something new they're trying to throw out there? Because that was really.
They'll give her an affiliation, right? You know, so that she's out.
I guess, but I don't know.
Well, we just bear in mind that the character is making appearances in the Iron Man books too. So you may be missing on some. You may be missing something there.
Yeah, there's that, and she's also in the Unstoppable Wasp, but she has another role there. So
right, but yeah, I loved the reveal page at the end of the main story, because it's so out there, and you know, McGinnis's art, for all the knocks I give it, the gist of what he's getting at in this page is so on point. You know, the visual cues that are there are so on point that, you know what I mean, with the lettering, with the proclamation on the page, made me kind of like, I kind of giggled. I was just like, that's
pretty clean. Yeah,
you know,
pretty clean.
So
and they'd also bring up the thing about Thor and She-Hulk, Hulk being a thing, and apparently, which I thought was kind of funny and cute, because like Thor and Captain Marvel were underwater talking, and they were talking, and that whole conversation was pretty funny, which they're going to apparently go into next issue, as to something happening with that. So,
but just to address what PCN_Dirt asked was, they sort of, you know, they continue to poke fun at Namor's new look, and it's a dated reference, but we'll get it because we are of a certain vintage.
Yes. So I would say this one would probably, and also we should point out it is the 700th issue, which is why it was as big as it was.
Yeah, based on the legacy numbering.
Right. So I would say this is also still worth a pickup. I'm not gonna say whether it's my click of the week or not, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a potential one for me.
Yeah, but it's definitely worth a look-see, I would say. So who wants to throw something out? Dirt?
Yeah, I can throw out. Well, let's see here. How about Flash 58?
How about it?
So one of the things that's been going on with Flash for a long time was that he was dealing with Flash from the future, and evil Flash from an alternate timeline, and an evil Flash from the past, and a Flash from some other universe, and there was all this like weird stuff going on, and they made this like convention of Flashes. I forget what it's called, but it's basically all the Flashes from the 52 universes of the DC New 52 all coming together to have these meetings, which includes even the one from the universe of Captain Carrot and his amazing zoo crew. So there were a lot of references. There's a lot of, you know, these things that have been thrown in there for longtime readers and people who can pick up on these little characters appearing in the background and whatnot. And it got really overloaded and convoluted, and characters who they would say something and you wouldn't understand what they were referencing, and then like 3 issues later something would happen and you realize that they were someone who was from the future who had come to the past, you know, this time travel stuff. They had done a lot of work setting all this stuff up. It was really cool, but at the same time you had to read every single issue. So they've broken out of that now, and Joshua Williamson, who's writing this, he's decided to take Flash on what he calls a force quest, and he's left Central City and he's traveling around the world, and he's basically kind of relearning his powers and relearning how his powers connect to the rest of the universe. One of the things he's learned is that the Speed Force is only one of many different forces. There's
the Force, no.
An X Force. No, there's a Strength Force. There's I forget what he calls it.
Still Force.
Yeah, Still Force, and a Sage Force was one of them, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's you know, throwing them in something new, taking them out of Central City and doing something different with them. So it's cool to finally see, you know, that stuff is kind of broken up. That chapter's over. He's moving into a new chapter. You feel like there's something new going on. There's a chance to explore new aspects of the powers and rebuild the relationship with Iris. And here's a non-spoiler spoiler, because she actually figured this out a long time ago. But she now remembers the timeline from before Flashpoint when she and Barry Allen were married. But Barry Allen doesn't. So it's this interesting little, you know, quirk in their relationship here. And so they're doing something new and different with it that's interesting, but at the same time, it still references so much of the other stuff that's happened, and it still builds on so much of the other stuff that it's still not good for new readers. If you're someone that's thinking like, oh, I like the Flash TV show, maybe I'll check out the comic, you still have to go back 2 years, you know, in order to really catch this storyline. Because even though it's a new chapter, you cannot just jump right into this unless you've got, you know, a Wikipedia handy to pick up on a lot of these references, because a lot of it just won't make sense with the stuff that's going on. So it's fun to see it do something new and different and interesting. And it's a, you know, again, it's a good payoff for longtime readers, but it is just not for new readers at all.
I was going to ask, Council of Flashes aside, do they talk about Wally? I know that's something bigger, but
they I think they mentioned in the last issue or the issue before, like he went to Sanctuary, and they just kind of mentioned that he's there, but I don't think they've specifically referenced that the fact that he's passed away.
Okay. So they're going to actually say that for the annual thing, because from what I understand, they're supposed to be handling that soon. Because I know other books have been handling that Heroes and Quests stuff pretty in line. So I'm just kind of curious about that. Okay, cool. Agent 70, got something?
Stuff that I want to talk about.
Yeah, I can do something unless you want to save it. But
well, I'll just touch on kind of the other big Marvel book that dropped this week, in terms of page count, at least, was Uncanny X-Men #1. It was okay. I liked the premise. I didn't think that the extra pages really lent too much, but it's also part of the setup to the weekly storyline that's coming up. Essentially, this is the softest of relaunches, because it is assembling the characters that have been at the focus of the X-Men Red books and part of the X-Men Gold books. There's a big cliffhanger page at the end of this, which was really well done. I give Marvel credit for both doing that in this issue and in what's that? I didn't get a chance to pick that up.
We'll get to that, yeah. That's the thing. That's that extra thing that came along with, or that shots were giving out.
Okay. So I didn't have a chance to pick up the extra thing, but I can just say that, you know, in terms of the story, we're not completely going into new territory with the X-Men, but it is familiar territory that has some good twists, especially concerning a character who just had a recently ended miniseries that PCN_Dirt liked. So that character is involved, but what that character's involvement entails is still up in the air. It's set up though as a mystery, but like I said, I appreciate the fact that as a #1 issue, this book really does make you want to pick up the second issue. Because of the great cliffhanger page.
So it's worth noting this is an $8 book, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's a bit of
yeah, and I've kind of flipped through it while I was at the shop, because I was like, I wasn't sure if it was worth me getting, because me and X-Men was like, and I didn't, and I did read to where that character you're speaking of from the other book comes into play, or early on in the book, and I'm like, oh, okay, so let me go back and finish reading that miniseries and see if that actually is a direct tie or not. But yeah, I don't know.
It's
Does it seem like it sets up a whole bunch of other stuff outside of what's going on? Because I know they have a couple of events going on, and I know, even on the back of this, like they're talking about another. And I'm holding up for the video version. It's called The Secrets of Uncanny XMen that shops were giving away free. And I know there's this symbol that is coming up for the XMen, and there's also this Age of XMen.
Right. They're bringing back Nate Gray. So,
yeah.
I mean, like I said, without getting too much into it, it is a #1 issue. It does create a good enough draw to come back for a #2.
Oh shit! You know what? We forgot about something. Speaking of X-Men, we forgot about something in X-Men. I mean, in Avengers #10, because there's an X-Men that shows up there in the middle of right after the main story, and as a popular, at this point, personally well-worn character that shows up.
Oh yeah, I didn't want to get into that part because it's super duper spoilery.
Well, sure, yeah, but it also kind of plays back to some of the stuff that's been going on in the book, and a person that's been kind of sort of behind the Avengers dealing. But nevertheless, and we don't know what, and this also sets up a bunch of other stuff that apparently is coming up throughout the year for that stuff. But yeah, anyway, back to X-Men. Unless we're done with that.
Now we're done.
Okay. Let us. Was that?
No, it was just a cough. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Let's go to. Did you read Miss Marvel?
No, I didn't.
Well, I won't spoil it. And I think you'll enjoy it, but it seems to be, as sometimes this book does, a one-off, but sometimes, as this book also does, these one-offs even tend to lead to something else.
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere down the line. So although I will say was that we take a trip back into Kamala's past, let's say, and it's a pretty good issue, I would say, as these things seem to do. But you got a sense of that something's going to come up about it, since especially with what happened, kind of sort of with what happened or what we found out in the last couple of issues with her powers.
Okay.
But this one has less to do with her powers than her actual history. Without going too far into it. So I would say it's definitely worth a read, especially if you're already a fan of the book Miss Marvel.
Alrighty. I don't think I have any other books in common with Dirt. So if you want to throw out a book before we go to rapid fire, Dirt, feel free.
Yeah, actually, let me talk about Gideon Falls #8 real quick here. So Gideon Falls, it's kind of being done in seasons, almost like a TV series, where the first 6 issues were one chunk of the story, and then it takes a couple months off, and then it starts with 7 and now 8 as kind of like the next part, the next season of the story. And one of the things we found, the story has been revolving around 2 different characters in 2 different places. You had a priest in a small town where there's this legend of the Black Barn, and when it appears, people die. And there's been this guy in this big city, and everybody thinks he's crazy, and he's digging through the garbage, and he's finding little pieces of wood, and he believes those little pieces of wood are part of this black barn that he has these visions of. And if he finds all the pieces, he can rebuild it, and he can solve this mystery of why he's being haunted by it. And at the end of season 1, at the end of issue 6, we found out that the guy in the big city is in the big city of Gideon Falls, which happens to be the name of the small town that the priest has been in. So somehow this guy in this big city has the same name as the city of the small town. So somehow they're connected. And you don't know, is this, just like I live in Springfield, Illinois. Well, there's a Springfield, Missouri, and a Springfield, Maryland, and a Springfield, is it just like Gideon Falls? Are they all over the place? Is this one in the past and one in the future? Because, the world that he's in this big city, it could be in the future, kind of. You don't really see anything technology jump out or anything, but you never really know. Could they be in different universes? You don't know. Is the guy just crazy and it's all in his mind? You don't know. So there's some sort of greater mystery going on. And in this issue, we find a way that these 2 universes link up that I'm not going to spoil, but it just like blows your mind. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But of course, you trust that the story is going to eventually make it make sense. But there's a connection going on between these two characters in these two different places that it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work. But when you're dealing with supernatural and fantastic things, you know, it'll have a way of going. But the book, the way the story is crafted and being told, it's so well put together. You can really tell that when Jeff Lemire, you know, sat down to actually plot out this book, he probably plotted out this overview that could end up being probably, you know, 50 issues or 100 issues, and then went back and started breaking it down. So you never feel like he's just putting out an issue because you have to meet a deadline and another issue has to go out. You don't get any of these issues that are move the characters from point A to point B so we can set them up for next time, which is what Venom felt like this week. You know, everything is just so well crafted and so well put together. And it's once you kind of realize the implications of what's being said and what's going on with these characters, it's like you hit that moment in Netflix at like 3 a.m. where you're like, I have to go to bed, but I have to watch the next episode of the show just to figure out what the hell is going on. But the problem is I have to wait a month for the next issue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know. It may not even answer the question in the next issue. You know what I mean? But it's just so good. It's
cool.
It really, you get to the end of the issue and you're just like dying for that next issue to come out. So well done.
I was about to say Sorrentino's art doesn't bother you.
I love it. I love his art. It also works in a series like this, which is very dark and horrific. You know, murders, demons, you know, Catholic curses, a guy going crazy. So that really works on a lot of this stuff.
Right. It's not necessarily the, you know, I don't necessarily think Sorrentino's strong point is superhero action.
Right. Mike Mignola in the same way. You know, he got his foot in the door doing Cosmic Odyssey and some fill-in issues on Superman and whatever. But you could really tell that as great an artist as he was, he really wasn't meant to do capes and superheroes and that kind of stuff. Once he found Hellboy, then, you know, he found his niche and that's where it is. I think Sorrentino is one of those artists where, you know, he did Old Man Logan and it worked kind of in that book because you're dealing with this old grizzled guy, but if he, you know, he pops up every so often in one of these weird fill-in things. I'm trying to remember.
Well, he did some Secret Wars miniseries. He did.
I would say there's some crossover. Was it the Pleasant Hill or whatever?
I always get that one wrong. You know that. It's not
when he shows up and he's drawing, you know, Captain America and Iron Man having a conversation. That's not the right artwork,
right?
You know, for him to be doing. So yeah, in a book like this, it fits perfectly.
Cool. All righty, Roddy.
Yeah, I'll throw one out here real quick, and then we can go to rapid fire, and that would be Daughters of the Dragon #1. So if you did not know, this is one of those Comixology digital first books that Marvel is putting out, along with, you know, Luke Cage and Iron Fist prior to it. That those are still going on. Those don't really show up on. So they're basically doing the thing where it is roughly 2 issues. They call it 2 chapters. In an issue, and then they do like 3 of those. I think they also did one for Jessica Jones also. So it's all of those characters they've been doing this is. I want to like this, and I end up actually I take it back. When you see the second chapter, it starts to hit. But the problem I have with it is that this is Daughters of the Dragon is Misty Knight and Colleen Wing, if you did not already know, and you know. Misty's work for the FBI. Colleen's out doing her thing, but she runs into, which weirdly enough, now that I think about it, kind of, I don't want to say mirrors the Netflix show a little bit. The Iron Fist Netflix show is what she gets, because she ends up meeting some teens that are hitchhiking to this one place where apparently people are going because to seek either enlightenment or something. So she comes across it and she tells Misty about this, and they're kind of working the case as it were. But Colleen goes and checks the place out after she finds these teens and gets into some trouble. Misty bails her out, and then they go back and get into some more stuff. The thing that part is okay, and because there's a good bit of action in between all of this, and there's some real trippy art in a couple of cases because Colleen gets drugged, and that part was amusingly fun. But the thing I was not liking about it was like the tone of the characters, most specifically Colleen, because Colleen is, if you don't know her character, is more stoic of the two, and Misty is the more kind of not braggadocious, but she's more out there as far as how she talks and whatnot. And we see a Colleen that's kind of talking kind of hip and a lot more than she has in historically. And it's just weird because you could tell this book is either, I don't know how old the dude is that's writing this book is, but you can tell he's might be kind of young or something. I don't know. So slightly a Teen Titan vibe on that part, but I'm not sure. But outside of that, like I said, the story itself so far seems to be pretty decent. Actually, like I said, once it got into the second chapter, I enjoyed where it was going, but it was just seeing Colleen, the way she was being written and the way she was talking, I was like, that's not usually how she talks. What is going on here? It was like, just like she's like, I can dig it. I'm hip, and a couple other things that she doesn't normally talk about. And I was like, that's uncharacteristic. What are you doing? That aside, it's could be worth it. If you're a fan of both of those characters, it's worth a read, I believe. And I'm not sure, when did Colleen get chi focusing power, because I don't remember her having that before. Because it says in the beginning of the book that she's got chi focusing powers from Iron Fist, and I'm like, okay.
From the Netflix show.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that made me think about that. I was like, huh? Okay. They still didn't dive too far into that then, but I'm like, okay, I don't remember any other time, because the last big book was both of them in it. Wait a minute, was that Fearless Defenders? Probably. But yeah, none of that was when they were working together, because they kind of split apart and going their own way a few years back. That being said, I don't know. Like I said, this is the first book of 3, and it's like two issues in one. Like I said, they break them off in the chapters, and it's good. And from what I saw from what's coming up, it looks like Nick Fury Jr. is going to play a part in this, which I'm like, that's weird. Because I know Misty used to work for S.H.I.E.L.D., but or work with S.H.I.E.L.D., but I don't know if Nick Fury Jr. had much of a dealings with them. It's with either of these two. So it is what it is. We'll see how it goes. I'm gonna check it out. But yeah, like I said, the writing of Colleen specifically, and some of the other, some stuff in it was kind of weird to me. So.
Alrighty. So if no one else has any other books they want to speak about in depth, I'm gonna spin up the good old Vulcan for rapid fire. All right.
I think I probably have more than both of you do, so I can go ahead and start, or both of you two can go ahead, or one of you two can.
You want to run through yours?
Yeah,
I can. I only have a couple here. Cosmic Ghost Rider #5. It's the end of this miniseries, and you find out that this miniseries was just a setup for the new Guardians of the Galaxy series. And basically, because it's a time travel thing, when you go and you do a bunch of stuff, and then you can travel back and stop yourself from doing a bunch of stuff, it makes the whole story moot. So, yeah. Kind of sad at the way this ended up, because it ended up being a whole big bag of nothing. And then we had Venom #8 was the other book I read this week. And like I mentioned earlier, talking about Gideon Falls, this was one of those, you have to move the character from point A to point B so that they have a setup for something that's going to happen in the next issue. But in this issue, there's not really a whole lot going on, other than a shout out to a former Venom series and a different person who was the character in a series that honestly didn't sell that well, but they're trying to sell people on the idea like, hey, it was so much better, so maybe you'll get a Marvel Unlimited subscription and go pick it up. But regardless, it is what it is. You got to do these from time to time when they do a lot of these series, especially with all the different crossovers and stuff that's going to be going on. But last page of the issue at least set up something really super fun and interesting that we can follow up on next month. So there you go.
Alrighty. I'll take care of my books now. So Amazing Spider-Man #9, picking up on the events of last issue, dealing with a group of characters that I guess have different branches around the world in the Marvel U. Specifically, I'm referring to the Thieves Guild. You know, we're familiar with them from Gambit and his origin story from way back when in the 90s. And now they are rearing their head in New York City and stepping up and stealing some really high-profile things. And Black Cat and Spidey are looking to liberate said things, and things don't exactly go according to plan. So we'll see where that goes in the next issue. Captain America #5. This is actually a really fun callback. You know, this part of Coates' run on Cap is a fun callback to Brubaker's run, because he's twisting and tying in lots of different aspects of some cool aspects of Brubaker's run, and bringing in a character, Selene, that we're not familiar with if you're only reading Captain America and or the Avengers corner of the universe. The character is traditionally an X-Men villain, and Cap actually brings that up here, and it's kind of cool to be inside Cap's head. And the way this issue is written is pretty fun, where we're actually thinking along with Cap. There isn't as much dialogue as what would normally be thought balloons, but they're actually just blue squares. So I know that Quesada outlawed thought balloons back in the day, but now we've got the new thought balloons. So it's a lot of fun. I recommend it. It's actually some of the sharper Lano U work, some of the cleaner Lano U work that you've seen in recent history. And Cap kind of comes up with a cool way of taking down the Taskmaster in this issue. So Daredevil #611. I won't spoil too much. I know that PCN_Dirt may be reading this. Again, this is just another chapter in the death of Daredevil. That's no spoiler. There is a plot, obviously, to kill Daredevil that is playing out over the course of these issues. And this is yet another chapter in that story. But one particular character who we didn't think was real reappears at the end of the story, and will likely have a very big impact on how this plays out, and how the miniseries that comes out of this supposed death of Daredevil story is probably going to play out after this run is done. And we'll probably cover this in the news later, but it was announced who the new creative team is on Daredevil once once Soul leaves this book, and once that intermediate story that comes out. I'm not sure who the creative team is. Once that comes out and finishes up, there's going to be a new creative team on Daredevil. Fantastic Four #3. This is a lot of fun because we get what we want, which is the reunion of the core members of the Fantastic Four and the Future Foundation, and the extra members that we see on the cover do serve their purpose. They do have their points in the book where they get some shine from the creative team. So it's a lot of fun. I always enjoy the family aspect of the Fantastic Four. I don't necessarily dig the stories where Reed is played off as this, aloof, overly into his head scientist. But at the end of the day, that's the way he's always been written. You know, going back to those FF books that I was referring to, that I used to read in reprint digests. So, you know, the character, the character's still there. That's how he's being written. Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, number 312. This is Spidey's separate chapters from Spider-Geddon, and in this issue, fans of Miles are going to be happy because there's an explanation for why Peter is not really showing up in the pages of the Spider-Geddon crossover proper. And, you know, we've known it from before. I'm not spoiling anything because this is now the second issue where Peter has basically said, I need to, you know, hold it down against Morla and I'll figure it out, while the other inheritors take on the rest of all the other Spideys. So Spidey Prime has got his hands full, if you know, to borrow some elements of the Distinguished Competition's character naming. And finally, Thor number 7 is really a fun issue. It's by Jason Aaron has guest artist. It is, I don't want to screw the guy's name up, but it's the guy that did The Walking Dead, the OG artist. I don't want to screw up his name. I totally forget. But it's a nice one-off story of a young Thor and why the young Thor, you know, Tony Moore. That's it. And it's actually really done well. The guest colorist, John Rausch, they together do a phenomenal job of doing this one-off issue that fills in a story of young Thor, heretofore not told, and it really does, you know, serve a purpose in filling in a gap, especially in the broader Jason Aaron story that's being told of what makes Thor or any god worthy of worshippers and of carrying a particular hammer. So for anyone that is interested in reading a cool story about a young brash Thor and a young kind of funnel crazily costumed Loki, it's this is a pretty cool one-off story to pick up.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I read a lot of books.
Yeah, we can go through, I can go through these with a couple of lines of fun. Star Trek versus Star Transformers number 2. The Decepticons meet the Klingons, and they go through it, and they get an understanding, and the Kirk and crew of the TAS era meets the rest of the Autobots, and apparently there's some history kind of repeats itself in a way as far as how they got into this, but with a slight spin, and yeah, and then there's an ambush, and yeah, things kind of start popping off. Titans number 29. So after the events of last issue, and the Drowned Earth prelude is that supposed to be, I guess they're part of that event is kind of over with because they are lost in space because they ended up attacking who's ever the bad guys in that thing, and then beating a hasty exit, which has them lost in space because they couldn't make the jump coordinates, and they didn't fly through an asteroid, but they did crash land on some planet, and they all get a pity party, and Beast Boy goes more beastly, and Mr. Martian ends up doing the same because they're all hurt, and all the kind of things happen. So there is that. Domino number 8. So Domino and her crew gets a contract last issue to get this box, and of course you're not supposed to open the box. They did, and ended up being Mobius, the living vampire, which vampire is dead. So how's it living? That's never been answered. That's okay. We never will. But he ends up working with them against some mare vampires. Yes, that's underwater vampires, and they end up doing something with this and letting them go. So all seemed to work out with that. It was interesting. Plastic Man number 6. This is the end of that miniseries. Oh, I just realized what I just did. Plastic Man's end of that series, but it looks like there could be more coming because there's least one or two. There's at least one thing that kind of was left on the table that that could be brought back to, because there was I guess a new villain for Plastic Man that could come into the fold that came into the course of this. But since this is in, that's not going to happen here. And he takes on a bunch of slightly known DC villains because they were messing with they were doing some behind the scenes stuff that could have been infiltrating the other Justice League teams, possibly, or at least what they said, but that might have been taken care of here in Plastic Man. Who knew? Bitterroot, #1. This is the new book from David F. Walker, Chuck Brown, and Sanford Green. Last of those two are hometown people to me. I'm holding up one of the covers, which is, as you can tell, is a Mike Mignola art. And I do have the regular book here, but that's, so regardless. So this book, if you haven't heard by now, is a book about a family of demon hunters back in the 1920s Harlem. We start to see some of their interactions, and we get to meet a few of them, but we don't. Not a lot of them are there, but we get to see the head of the family and a couple of them. And most of this issue is spent trying to toughen up and get one of the younger members of the family to kind of get himself in shape, because he's the less experienced and of the ones that have been shown, and some stuff that are gonna come across that. So it's a pretty good issue. I like it. It's a pretty decent start for what this is, and I enjoyed it. Darth Vader, #23. So he's on So what were you?
The only thing I was going to ask is, did you also buy the regular cover?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I know the A covers are going to all go together to make one big image.
Yeah, and I know Sanford Green has done stuff like that before, and so excuse the rattling here. So yeah, here's the.
Yeah.
Right, and then the A cover is going to be, he's probably going to sell it as a print at when you see him at a con.
More than likely. So. Let's see, where was I? Darth Vader, #23. So Darth Vader's on Mustafar, making the summer home, which doesn't go as well.
Can't make a winter home there. Oh no!
I know, right? Which has the neighbors rather bothered, and the architect of this place, hence known as Darth Vader's castle, is a former Sith who's embodying a mask, and every time that the structure doesn't go right, the intent is that Vader kills him, puts the mask on somebody else, and then he ends up making another run at the castle, and he finally gets it right. And of course, as tends to happen with Sith, there's a betrayal at the end of this. All the while, the neighbors around are coming to knocking, not in a friendly way, because all their building and whatnot is disturbing the land, such as it's Mustafar. It's already kind of messed up. So there's a battle on two fronts that's going to come next issue. Juke Joint, #2. This is the T. Franklin book. It is about I think I've pretty much talked about this. This is about a joint somewhere in I don't know, it's supposed to be like Louisiana. There's some voodoo involved, and if you mess up, you're gonna get dealt with, and that's what happens during the course of this issue and the last issue, including one that has to do with this lady's husband who was beating up on her and her daughter. She goes to the lady to help out, which she does, but now has second thoughts about that, and to a lady whose name that's escaping right now, is kind of like, look, if you go back to the dude, he's going to kill you, this and that, the other, and that's where we kind of leave out. So, and they would, in the same time, she was also trying to get this lady to come into the fold and help out, but we don't know if that's going to happen or not. And that, folks, is it for me, because we've gone through everything else. So, clicks of the week.
Here they come, clicks of the week.
Well, it's not Mr. Miracle, which is
That's kind of sad. Yeah.
That would have been like if you asked me, last week what my click this week was going to be, I would have put money on that. But
Right.
No, actually, I'm going with Gideon Falls because again, Gideon Falls hits you with that mind-bending twist that makes you hungry for the next issue.
Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Avengers number 10. I had a lot of fun in.
You mean 700?
Say again?
You mean Avengers 700?
Oh yeah, that too. and that it was a lot of fun. It was pretty evident from my discussion about it that it was a lot of fun.
And I think
Tim agrees with you on that.
Yeah, Tim definitely does agree with you because that was his click of the week. And I'm thinking I'm actually going to go along with that one also.
Go!
Because like I've personally read some pretty good stuff. It was like the Daughters of the Dragon, I kind of had more hopes for it than it actually started to give out, but it ended up being better than my initial thoughts in some cases. But definitely Avengers 10 was the big book of this week, and therefore 3 out of 4 of our clicks of the week.
Nice.
Alrighty, and with that, I'm gonna have to bid you adieu.
Yep.
Excelsior.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I'll see you next week.
Come on, Doug. You gotta give us Excelsior.
Or the next show.
I can't do the stand voice. Oh, that's right. There is no next week, is there? Because next
right.
week.
Correct. Yes. So, because yes, it is Thanksgiving here in the U.S., and we will more than likely not have a show.
We're all going to be kind of tied up with family obligations next week.
So
yes.
back the 29th.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Excelsior!
Yay!
Later on, Dirk.
See ya. All right. So we transition into our first ad of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Our first ad of the night is for Funko, Fun at First Sight. Your home for exclusive collectibles, such as their world-famous pop vinyl bobbleheads, apparel, t-shirts, hats, and socks, and brand merchandise, such as custom DIY pop figures, art books, and skateboards. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy 10% off your entire purchase when shopping at Funko. To place your first order with 10% off, and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcasts free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Funko link and place your order. When you get to the checkout, put in the offer code SHOP10 for your 10% off discount. Funko through cspn.us. Do it today. All right, and now we transition into the news.
Yes, and we start off as we do every week with the cinematic news. And folks, we finally found out the name of Disney's new streaming service. And that name will be nothing zippy because it's zippy, because it's Disney. It is called Disney Plus.
Wait, do I have a slow clap here? Hold on, do I have?
I'm thinking crickets. Here, go for it.
Crickets can work.
Oh yeah. So again, the streaming service apparently will. I didn't know they owned National Geographic. That's amusing.
I think that came with Fox.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So Disney Pixar, as you can see from the video, there's a picture here, an image here. So it's the logo. I guess that's the logo, and most of the stuff that is going to be under the House of Mouse's new streaming service. That's Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, and National Geographic. So yeah, and around wait, does it say? Oh, apparently there is a new registration site that is up where people can sign up to get more news on this streaming service. And then we already know pricing and all that kind of good mess. But we don't know when in 2019 it's going to come out, because they're also still in the throes of that Fox merger. So that's got to get ironed out, which is just like maybe completed by the first. So,
All right. Next up, Disney announced a second live-action Star Wars show that's going to be on the streaming platform, and Diego Luna is going to be reprising the role of Rebel Alliance spy Cassian Andor. That's pretty cool. And that's from that character was in Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
That is correct. So this clearly has to be something before that, because that's a pretty final.
Right. It's gonna be a prequel to that, right?
Yes. Also worth noting, and to some people's ire, not without I believe this is going to be without the droid, whose name is escaping me right now.
Alan Tudyk.
Well, yeah, who was played by Alan Tudyk, but yes, I can't remember the Imperial droid that he was rolling with during the events of Rogue One. So that's the thing. There you go. And wait, hold on for a second, because I could have sworn I had something on that too. Oh yeah, so this is after that. So I don't know. I messed up in my ordering. So if you wanted to ever watch the Star Wars Holiday Special, folks, you can do that because it's on YouTube. The Holiday Special was from 1978. So those of us of a certain image may have some vague memories of this not great piece of television history. But you can go to the SW Holiday Special on YouTube, or just search, just hit a search on YouTube for it, and it's there on all of its terrible glory. But in seemingly decent quality for the time, because we don't know if this is going to be on Disney streaming service. Probably should, probably won't, but nevertheless, it's out there. Next up,
it is official. Disney's bringing a Loki television series to its streaming service too. Thought we covered this last week, but I guess it has now been confirmed.
Yeah, well, we've covered this. Well, we've covered the rumors of it all in the past, but no, not the officialness of it, because actually this came out. I wouldn't say this came out the night we were recording, but we did not. So yeah, it's official. And I'm going to assume that this is going to be at some point in some history, because it's probably before Infinity War, I would think. Which there was also another article that I didn't put in here about Loki's character could have ended up in a different way, judging by a earlier script in Infinity War. And it also gives credence to the fact that I guess he may actually be dead at this point. But we still shall see, because we don't know telling what that other Avengers movie is going to do. So, next up, Brie Larson's recent Captain Marvel tweet revealed number 4 America's Hottest Talk Line. So that's funny. So apparently there was a trailer or something that happened around. This was around Election Day. And there was I don't know where it is, because I don't know if it's in here.
Oh no.
It's just anyway, it's just as well. So Brie Larson was doing a kind of a tweeted out a photo of her in costume surrounded by 90s era Rock the Vote signs, and one Redditor user dug in deep and revealed that the phone number that shows up in said picture is one for a sex line. A fairly popular sex line, according to this article. So, yeah, if that is the case, then that's kind of funny. And apparently, the people at Sci-Fi who wrote this article confirmed that, yep, it surely is, because they called the number. Because what are you going to do if you see a number in a thing like that? You call it.
All right. The upcoming Captain Marvel movie is based in large part on Kelly Sue DeConnick's comics run. That's cool. That's a run that reinvigorated the character.
Well, I was about to say, so exactly, because should be no surprise to people in the comics know, because before that run, well, I guess there was a Captain Marvel, I guess, because but that's kind of when she came into prominence as Captain Marvel.
Right, because prior to that, she had really been Miss Marvel.
Right. So I'm trying to think back to Bendis's Mighty Avengers run, and I think she was still Miss Marvel then too. So she basically came into Captain Marvel with Kelly Sue's comic run, which was a great run if you ever get a chance to read it. So,
right, and that's where the costume revision starts. So
right, which is seeing the costume and seeing seeing things leading up to the movie, which is not out yet. It doesn't come out until next year. But yeah, that's the thing. So it's confirmed. So next up.
Alrighty. Do you have to turn your camera off?
No. Wait, why is my camera even? No, I don't know. Something happened with screen sharing. It just went.
Okay. Alrighty. So where are we now? I think it's you're up.
Oh, and actually something is wrong with my camera. What is going on here? Anyway, while I try to situate that.
You want to take the next one then?
No, I got it. But it's just weird that this just happened all of a sudden. Anyway, Stan Lee already filmed his Avengers 4 cameo. So yeah, like I said, we're going to get into more, and there's still some more news about this. So I think Avengers 4 might be the last one he's filmed, because I believe there was another article saying that he was not in whatever the upcoming X-Men film is. So this might be the last.
Right. He's already done his Captain Marvel one, presumably.
Right. He's done that one. He's done Avengers 4. He's done Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse one. And I think there might have been another one that he's already done.
He might have done the Spidey Far From Home already.
Maybe, I'm not sure. It doesn't say.
Okay.
But yeah, so I know there was a few of them he had already done in advance. So yeah. There you go. Look forward to at least a few more cameos from Stan Lee going forward.
Alrighty, so another trailer for the Spider-Verse movie from Sony has dropped, and it shows a bit more than the initial trailer.
Yeah, and you should go check it out if you're remotely interested in that movie, as I am. But I don't need to see realistically. I don't need to see anymore because I just
I don't want to watch this. I don't want to spoil it anymore because it's coming out soon enough.
Yeah, so that's kind of going against what I just said. But nevertheless, if you are interested in
right. At this point, it's less than a month away. So
right. So next up, Black Widow character breakdowns may point to a film's villain. So apparently, yeah, Black Widow movie is still coming. And some rumor site, that hashtag show, which apparently people tend to use, has details on characters that Scarlett Johansson's Natasha Romanoff will come across during her first solo authoring. For starters, the film's villain is said to be a man describing only as exciting and geared toward any actor in his 40s. The outlet speculates the villain may be Taskmaster or a Red Guardian. Sure. And there's some other people that they're putting out feelers for. So sure, it's a thing still. Next,
Marvel's The Eternals is eyeing a 2019 production start date. So, in lieu of Guardians, guess what we're getting? Eternals.
Or might someone would argue probably in spite of or because of.
Right.
But we don't know if they were already had plans to bring the Eternals, who haven't really been seen much. I mean, recently, kind of, sort of, but not.
Yeah, because you want to see, you definitely want to see that the red guy or the blue guy or the running guy or the gold lady.
Sure. Yes. So,
I mean, the hardcore amongst the hardcore amongst us don't even know these characters' names or whatever, dude.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, they did show up in Avengers fairly as a couple of issues, but it kind of came and went in the most recent Avengers book.
Right.
So, but still, like I think Icarus, that might have been one of them or something. I don't even know if that's
yeah, I think that's the blue guy.
Yeah.
Blonde hair.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it is what it is. That's the thing that's coming. I hope maybe they learned the lessons from the humans and we'll do something different. We'd have to know. But next up, is that me?
It's you.
Oh, Cloak and Dagger tests their powers in season 2 screen test. So there's a screen test that happened in a little behind the scenes video, where it looks like the stars are looking like they're going to use their powers, which I haven't seen Cloak and Dagger, so I don't know if they've actually been using them at all. And apparently, I think as weirdly enough, as big a note for me in this article was that there was a former Power Ranger that's apparently a part of the show.
Okay.
Don't ask me why. But hey.
Alrighty. Next up, the Roger Corman 1994 non-classic Fantastic Four movie is actually now on YouTube for you to watch at your leisure.
Yes. This was from, actually, we had this in last week's lineup and totally forgot to gloss talk. We totally didn't even talk about it for some reason. So I'm not sure what happened with that. But regardless, go check it out. It's on YouTube. It is fascinating if you did not know, because it was previously unreleased and it's still unreleased technically, but it's out there to watch on YouTube because you've heard about the documentary surrounding it, and now you get to see the Roger Corman unclassic in its entirety. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if those of you talking mess about those other Fantastic Four movies, yes, you really go watch that. You will know the meaning of that. I hadn't really watched it all because I started and I didn't, but I'm gonna definitely do so. You might want to do it before it goes off of Twitter. Go also off of YouTube, by the way.
Right.
Supergirl kills off, spoiler, in latest episode. And no, not that spoiler, because that is not a part of this world. Maybe she's coming, maybe not. But in the last episode of Supergirl, as of I guess last week, a familiar name has been killed off, or if you know the Superman canon, and that would be Mercy and Otis Graves. So if you know the name of Mercy, that is Lex Luthor's second henchwoman, or second in charge, or henchwoman, or valet, bodyguard, whatever you want to call her.
Right.
So in the Supergirl mythos, she is now dead, and her brother, who apparently was causing some problems. But who's to say she may come back as, I don't know, a cyborg or something?
Oh yeah.
Because that's been a storyline that has actually happened in Justice League or something.
Okay. Let's see. More CW television I don't watch. Supergirl casts Nia Nal's mother and sister. Good lord.
Yeah, so apparently this is a Legend of Superheroes callback. Again, a group I don't know too much about. So because they've definitely been doing a lot of Legends of Superhero stuff in this last season or two. So
Legend of Superheroes, right?
Yeah. Wait, what did I say?
Legend of Superheroes.
Oh, sure. Well, different. Yeah, same, different, not. So yeah. Apparently, I think this is Dream Girl's mother, also known as Dreamer. So this is her mother. Okay, sure. First look at CW's Superman and Lois Lane united for Elseworlds. So we knew that Supergirl's Superman and that there was going to be a Lois Lane coming into the fold on that show, and there is a look of them two together, or a picture that was on some site. You couldn't say it's almost reminiscent of the Christopher Reeve Margot Kidder one, but sure, they look all right.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I would have it up on the video right now if my video was working.
Hello, Google Hangouts.
I know, right? Next up.
Things get weird in the first trailer for the CW's Elseworlds crossover. So everyone is in everybody else's costume. That's what's weird about it.
Mm-hmm. And apparently Ollie is kissing Iris.
Oh, really?
Because he is taking Barry's place. They've switched worlds, so therefore he's living, I guess, assuming this is giving credence that he's living Barry's life, and I guess vice versa. So you can see from that teaser trailer video that you can't see it because again, video, but there's an image of Iris and Ollie kissing to his surprise, which means that he doesn't know what's going on here. It's kind of funny looking. So, next up, Ragdoll strikes a new clip from The Flash. I don't know who. So, do you know anything about this character, Ragdoll?
Nope.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So, I guess this is someone from The Flash's Rogues Gallery or somewhere in DC. I don't know. But there was I guess it's from last week's episode also. There was a clip. Or is it from this week? Regardless, it doesn't matter. The Ragdoll, who looks really silly. Again, if you could see this on video, I would very much show it. Looks kind of silly in his mask. It always looks like a weird. Actually, looks like the mask. with what's going on in that picture. But apparently, there's some tie to him working with Iris and their daughter and Barry's daughter Nora, which I guess caused some friction or something. I don't know, but it's a thing that's happening. Next,
the CW announces mid-season schedule changes for Arrowverse and more. So make sure to check your cable guide.
Yes, indeed. Yes, there's going to be some scheduling changes there, including what they're bringing in on other fronts outside of the Arrowverse. Legends of Tomorrow confirms Swamp Thing lurks in the Arrowverse. So this was from the last episode where they referenced Swamp Thing in, I guess, more than one fashion. One big fashion. I guess they go to see a movie called Swamp Thing.
We're getting yelled at by or scolded by Matt Wang for not knowing.
Oh, really?
Who Ragdoll is. So apparently we don't know.
Surprise.
We're not familiar with the JSA.
Yeah, I mean,
Starman villain Ragdoll.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you.
I mean, I freely admit my DC knowledge is.
And I know nothing of. No, I am not a Matter Eater Lad fan because I know nothing of. I don't know. I was not that big of a DC fan in general. Just on the cursory glances, even now. So I don't know anything about Legion of the Superheroes outside of the fact that they're a thing. Secret Six also, which I hear things about from people who like Gail Simone. And I'm a fan of Gail Simone's work, but I don't know everything about her, and definitely don't know anything about Secret Six.
Right. I was gonna add. I always thought Wildfire was cool. He had a cool look. I don't know if you're familiar with that character. You can look it up when you have a chance. You can look it up.
Yeah, remind me later.
Wildfire had a pretty cool look. Moving on.
No, Wildfire from Shogun Ninja, Ronin Warrior. Excuse me. Anyway,
DC Universe's Swamp Thing casts Alec Holland and the title character, so good for them.
Yeah, so now we got the Swamp Thing to go with the show that's coming. That's probably a good thing. Next up, Nightwing director hired for live action Johnny Quest movie because they can't stop digging things up. I'm a fan of Johnny Quest, the old cartoons. I don't think that this should happen. Call me crazy. But it's apparently a thing that they're looking into, and it's in a report phase, so we don't know if it's actually going to happen. Actually, heck, we're not even sure if that Nightwing movie is still going to happen, but apparently maybe it is. Yeah. So next up,
Kingsman 3 news. Taron Egerton will not return as Eggsy, which is surprising because he's the kind of the lead character. So he's not going to be along for the next installment of the franchise. And Matthew Vaughn is at work on directing and writing the next one. So
yeah, it is, but it isn't, because I kind of feel like, yeah, it is. But at the end of the last movie, spoiler alert, he didn't get written out, but he's like, well, he's in another place now. That doesn't mean they couldn't brought him back. But at the same time, if you think about how these movies have gone, like the character who shows up in the last movie, who should not have been around, comes back. So that's not saying that he could not come up for the one after this.
Right.
Because apparently they do plan on doing more with that franchise. Whether they need to or not, different story. But
true enough.
So, report: Michelle Yeoh may return as Emperor Georgiou in a standalone Star Trek series. They are really trying to do something with these series. Hey, I will watch a movie. I will watch a show with Michelle Yeoh in it any day.
All right.
That said, I haven't been keeping up with Discovery, so I don't know.
Yeah,
you know. But Emperor Georgiou is the Mirror Universe character that apparently showed up at some point in Discovery, in lieu of the fact that the original character that Michelle Yeoh played got out of it or came or left the series. I guess I don't know. I'll leave it to you to discover that.
Next up, Star Trek backstory for the USS Discovery sentient computer exists in Michael. Help me with the pronunciation here. Caban's head.
Sure. That's about as good as I couldn't have told you anyway. So yeah, and apparently this was have to do with one of the short treks, the little mini episodes that they've been doing. That I guess just came out, and this one was called Calypso, which has to do with I guess the Enterprise being by itself for many a year or something, and something happened. I'm not sure because again, I've not seen any of this stuff, so I don't even know. But apparently, you know, the writer has the ideas of where that goes with some of that, which may or may not have come out in that short episode. So yeah, The Walking Dead producer reveals the name of Michonne's
kid.
Yes.
So
if you did not know, if you hadn't watched Walking Dead, because I haven't, Rick Grimes left the show. Apparently there was a time jump. Michonne was pregnant by Rick because they apparently had a thing. And there was actually two kids, because there was I've seen pictures of the other little girl kid that had Rick's son's hat.
That's Judith.
Yeah, okay.
That's Judith. That's the kid that Rick's wife had with Shane. But he claimed it. He claimed her as his own after Shane died. So,
gotcha. Which is he supposed to be coming back to the show for next season? Something?
He already made his appearance in the last episode with Rick.
Because of Rick, okay, yeah. Right. But I thought
I think it was a flashback sequence. So.
Yeah, which makes sense given that Rick was leaving his show. So yeah, that's the thing. The Rick's kid is not on the show. Okay.
All right. Next up, Deadly Class. Kindness is weakness in the new trailer for the Sci-Fi series.
Yeah, shout out to Benedict Wong, who's steadily getting work. So yeah, this is a new trailer for that sci-fi show, Deadly Class, based off the Remender and Wes Craig image book. I know nothing about that series. I just actually, on a side note, I just found out that there was and I know Matt probably will know something about this already, but there is a Thief of Thieves video game, which I could have saved this for later on, that I just found out about that came out this June, and it's based off the book, and it's kind of stealthy / Hitman-like, and it's kind of interesting, and it's in the style of the book. Okay. And of course, it's being done by Skybomb Games. So, and it's almost kind of have as an element of the Telltale type storytelling type stuff, except there's a little bit more action to it, and it's like I said, stealthy and Hitman-ish like, but it is a thing. Anyway, next. Oh, is it me?
Yep.
Aren't you glad? The Detective Pikachu trailer is full of Pokemon Easter eggs. So yes, this is not directly comic book related, but nevertheless, if you've been online, you had to know about the Detective Pikachu live action movie, folks. That
right.
is happening.
I was about to say in the vein of things you never knew you wanted or thought people wanted.
Yeah. And there was a whole lot of when this dropped like a day or two ago. There was a whole lot of this is kind of terrifying because real life Pokemon is weird, but at the same time, I've seen a lot of people who's like, "Yep, 6 months, I'm going to see this." Much to my chagrin.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen the trailer, it's being the Pikachu is being voiced by one Ryan Reynolds of Deadpool and other things fame, and the voice really doesn't. I don't know. To me, the voice really doesn't fit the character. But you could say yeah, Pikachu. I mean, Pikachu is a Pokemon, and all they do is say the name. Which some of that is being played out along with other Easter eggs that happen in the trailer. You should go see this trailer. You should go check out this trailer. It's interesting. Yeah.
Alrighty. So next up, Toy Story 4's latest teaser is a trailer reaction video starring Key and Peele. So the actual teaser trailer came out, and there's a new character in there.
New characters.
New characters, but there's a new character in there that is that will be familiar to you if you went to school and had lunch in the cafeteria.
Okay, I haven't watched this, so I don't know what you mean by that. But
so when you watch it, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, okay."
Yeah, but definitely the.
Right. I was about to say, talk about not spoiling anything, right?
Yeah, that's. I'm like, okay, now I actually want to watch this because I wasn't had no plans to actually do so before you said that. Now I'm curious. But yeah, so Key and Peele, shout out to them. I guess are voicing two characters, and this is this whole thing was a teaser action using those characters' voices, I guess, or something like that. So cool. I like the tagline underneath the thing, to infinity and your mom. That's kind of cute. I don't know if that gets played anywhere else, but anyway, RJ Seiler, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that name right, is now Todd Green on the CWWB hit Black Lightning. So if you're not familiar with that name, or if you may be familiar with that name, that is Billy from the last Power Rangers movie from last year.
Okay.
And he's going to be playing Todd Green, the gangly and awkward tech genius who was passed over for his research grant. He doesn't take it well until he gets an offer to join Tobias Well. Before he joins Tobias Well. So I guess he's going to be on the bad side of things, or misused, I guess. So yeah, that's the thing. And it doesn't say when he's going to come in, but yeah, I guess it's going to be in the coming season.
All righty, so I guess we can transition over to comic news.
We can, and we've kind of already talked about this at the top of
this.
I
was about to say, hold on.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
Yes. So the passing of Stan Lee, again, we talked about that, so we can kind of skip this. Well, not necessarily skip it, but
we'll highlight some of these stories. So obviously the first story is that he's passed away. The follow-up story that's in our queue is that Roy Thomas had a chance to share his thoughts on Stan's life in the wake of Stan's passing. Roy apparently was one of the last to actually see Stan and have his picture taken with Stan before Stan passed. For those of you who don't know, Roy Thomas was the protege of Stan Lee and was the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, in the immediate successor to Stan Lee as the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics.
And if we had video, boy, would I love to show you this picture of Stan Lee, Roy Thomas, and whoever this other guy is.
I think it's like his assistant.
Yeah. So, but that's that. And also, Mark Hamill of, I don't know who that guy is, fame. No one knows that guy. Pens a heartfelt tribute. I'm kidding, folks. I actually do know this. Come on. Heartfelt tribute to his childhood idol, Stan Lee. So he like most people did on Twitter after the on passing, Mark Hamill goes out there and says his contribution to pop culture was revolutionary, cannot be overstated. He was everything you hoped for. He hoped he would be, and more. I love this man and will never stop missing him. They say you should never meet your childhood idol. They are wrong. And he says, "Rep Stan Demand." So there is also a tie within which this brings up, because I'm looking at the video. I mean, I'm looking at the pictures that Mark Hamill put on his Twitter, and there is the one with them two together. There's a picture of Stan Lee by himself, and there's like two pictures of them two together. And there is one from a movie a Kevin Smith movie, which Stan Lee has also been in. I don't know if he was in that particular one, now that I think about it, but I know Mark Hamill did a Kevin Smith movie, and so did Stan Lee. So there is a tie between them two, but I don't think they were in the same movie. And I think, what was it? It was oh shit, the Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. That's what it was. That Hamill was in, and Stan Lee was in Mallrats.
Stan was in a bunch of those movies. So
Yeah, he was. Well, yeah, he's been. I mean, outside of Marvel,
he was in a bunch of Kevin
Yeah.
Smith movies.
Was he? I don't remember him from
Mallrats. So Mallrats. He had
I
scenes.
know he was in Mallrats.
Right. He had scenes. We had cameos in a bunch of them.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because Kevin Smith, big comic fan, and Stanley fan. So, I don't remember him from Mallrats. And if he was in Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, I totally missed it.
It was probably a quick cameo, and you
Probably, but yeah. So either way, that is that.
So the Distinguished Competition also posted to Twitter a celebration of the life of Stan Lee.
Yes, and they say he changed the way we look at heroes, and modern comics will always bear his indelible mark. His enthusiasm always reminding us why we all fell in love with these stories in the first place. Excelsior, Stan. So shout out to whoever in turn wrote that. That's mean, but still.
I was about to say whoever the intern was, probably had to run it past someone upstairs.
Yeah, probably, but and I guess one of the last two on the Stanley front. Oh wow, I didn't see Al Sharpton had said something about Stanley. That's interesting. Anyway, Tom King has been subtly honoring Stan Lee at DC for years, which I believe I alluded to before we started recording. And matter of fact, in fact, we have talked about this before, because even in Mr. Miracle this week, there is I wouldn't say blatant, but there's a pretty direct quote of a Marvel's Comics line that fans of Spider-Man would know quite well. So I'm not, so that was, if that wasn't blatant enough, and I think this is not the first time that particular line or something had shown up in Mr. Miracle, but I don't know what else, and I don't know if he's been doing some other stuff in Batman or whatever. But Tom King says he meant so much as a tribute to Stan and his immortal Stanley Presents, which I believe Dirt mentioned something about earlier. Since the start of my career, I've tried always to put a DC Comics Presents before my titles. I told him this once. He nodded, patted my back, and said, "Forget that, kid. Just write for Marvel." Which that's funny. Which he did, but yeah, that didn't stop him from doing other stuff that we have seen.
Right.
That we have seen him do in DC.
Right. So just before we move off into the next phase of the news, just wanted to point out that there are tons of remembrances and tributes and eulogies to Stan Lee out there on social media and on the web. So, the outpouring of love and grief and, joy at his, joy regarding or surrounding his work and his long history in comics is abounds all over on the web. So take a moment, add your own voice to the story. So
indeed. And as what Matt Wang says, going back to the Kevin Smith thing, he's like, I think Mark Hamill was awesome as Cockknocker in that Kevin Smith and Kevin Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, one of his favorite movies. I'm a little bit more partial to Mallrats myself and Clerks, but hey, that was a good movie for what it was at the time. Anywho, and apparently he also says that was Roy Thomas's agent / manager.
There you go.
The other person in the so thank you for that. Moving right along with the news. Marvel Spider-Man's PS4 has the most heartwarming Stan Lee cameo ever. So I just put this in there just as a reminder. One, hey, that game is out and still good. But also, I totally remembered that the fact that he was in the game, he cameoed in the game kind of early on. So if you've not played the game, it's kind of a spoiler thing, but I won't go into it. Actually, no, I won't go into it. But there was a pretty early on interaction between a couple of characters, and just so happens that Stan Lee kind of cameos in after that. So it was pretty cute. I wasn't expecting it, but it was good. So yeah, so if you get a chance to play that game, you should. I need to finish it because it's good stuff. Next up, Marvel Rising pays homage to classic Marvel Comics covers. So the next generation of heroes in actually wait, these are about toys, right? Yes, it is.
So the characters that are coming out as action dolls, Ms. Marvel, Squirrel Girl, America Chavez, Ghost Spider, and Quake are all going to have covers as homage to a classic cover from years past as part of their packaging.
Yes. So yeah, and there was a link to the Twitter where they showed all of those, and unfortunately I can't show it to you right now. So that sucks. Moving right along. I'm going to be on this until we end the show. I can see that right now. Marvel has revealed where the Infinity Stones come from. This is from that event that I'm still not reading yet.
Right.
Okay. Infinity Wars #5, which is that out, y'all? I'm assuming it is, since this is a thing.
Last week, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we found out where the Infinity Stones come from, or the gems, as we historically like to call them. Because gems to me.
Yeah. Next up, Tupac and T'Challa. Marvel partners with the late rapper's estate for an apparel line. Okay.
Yes. So yeah. There's said. So and apparently this launches is already launched as an exclusive of Pop by Foot Locker. And that's not Pop like Funko Pop. Because I know they do have Funko Pops in Foot Locker, but I don't think this has anything to do with Funko. So, and it says here, the intersection of music and Black Panther is such a vital part of that property, so it's fantastic to co-brand with an influential artist like Tupac. Okay, he's passed long since. But anyway, on a new collection of Marvel apparel. Have you looked at it?
No, not yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I am not the biggest Pac fan, but I respect his work, and sure, I guess it's a thing. If they had gone Wu-Tang, I'd have been like, okay, word. That's makes total sense. That makes way more sense.
Yeah, it does.
So, but I am not the marketing person, and I'm sure it is what it is. Next up, the Black Order actually. So yeah, Thanos' Black Order has a new master in #1.
That's this week's issue.
That is this week's issue.
And we didn't actually get a copy of it, huh?
No, I don't believe we did. And I didn't even skim it, so I was like, do I really care that much?
I picked it up because it has nice interior art by Philip Tan.
Okay, sure, but you didn't.
I didn't read it.
Yeah,
I didn't read it. That reminds me, I should bug Dirt about that.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
That is the thing. Going back to Spider-Man PS4, which wow, it's just luck on that one, huh? Weird. So there's a new DLC that just came out, and there's more DLC Spider-Man suits, and there's an article out there from GameSpot about how you can unlock them. Because as you progress through the game, you can unlock new suits for Spidey, and there was already like 12, 13, something like suits in there. So this DLC is bringing more suits. More suits, more fun, then you can get your photo mode fun in on. Which actually looks like this article is doing some of the stuff that's already been out there. But yeah, anyway, so that is the thing. Again, go play that game. Next.
1 second, I'm just bugging PC and underscore Dirt about this. Where are we? San Diego Comic-Con president John Rogers has died from brain cancer. I thought we covered this. Poor guy, rest in peace.
No, we had not.
Okay.
Because I think this just happened like a couple of days ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So next up, so there's a new Kickstarter out called The Good Fight, a peaceful stand against bigotry and racism. That is going on now. It's a comic book anthology with a bunch of creators that you might know and love. Yeah. you should check that out. Go look up The Good Fight, A Peaceful Stand Against Bigotry and Racism. See if it's something that you want to go ahead and back. It looks like they have already met their goal and still have 26 days to go as of this recording.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So I guess they're going into stretch goals at this point.
Alrighty. Next up, there's a new Flash story that leads DC Holiday Special for Walmart. So there's a new Flash story by Scott Lobdell, Brett Booth, and Norm Ratman that leads the just announced DC's World's Greatest Superheroes Holiday Special. I think it's out already. Yeah, because it was supposed to go on sale Sunday, November 11th at Walmart stores nationwide. Because I believe our very own PCN_Dirt already picked up his copy.
You are correct. Uh-oh. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Moving on.
Yeah. So yeah, if you get there, check that out. I don't know what the story's about, but it's a thing. He-Man Injustice crossover rewrites the history of DC's anti-life equation. This is a spoiler for last week, which we talked about this last week, but we didn't get into that part. And I thought this was kind of an alternate reality, so I don't know if it's actually rewriting it for the Prime universe or just something that's kind of brought up there. But there's a weirdly, especially in the panel that shows up in this article, there's a weirdly Infinity Gauntlet-esque look to what Darkseid has on, which granted, Darkseid could be a Thanos parallel anyway. Probably is. Let's face it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can go check that out if you feel so inclined. That is a pretty. I've been enjoying reading that. It might read better in trade, but it's which I believe Dirt is doing. So you can go check out all of it regardless. Next,
Dr. Manhattan is meddling, and that is the force behind some of what's happened in DC's Rebirth. And the meddling is officially rewriting Green Lantern's history. So I guess that's going to be part of the new Green Lantern book.
Yeah, that's you guys talked about last week by noted weird writer Grant Morrison.
Right.
So, should be no surprise. Batman adopts a new ward in Justice League. Not necessarily, but kind of. So this is from Justice League 11, which I believe was from last week also.
Mm-hmm.
Where in the villain Starro, y'all know that Starfish from The Man Who Does Everything. Y'all know that in other places, obviously. But Starro returned, died, but then came back as a younger version of itself, kind of like Darkseid did.
Mm-hmm.
But and apparently Batman put him in a jar and has him working for him. So that is the ward they're talking about.
Oh, he had him on his. Yeah, that was pretty silly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jarro, as he's calling them, which apparently was the one that called him that. I'm like, Batman has a sense of humor. Who knew? Which this article kind of brings up. So yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was, oh god, that's silly. Alrighty, next up, Marvel announces a Hulkverines. Yeah, you heard that.
Which they already had, because isn't that what that stupid Weapon Age thing is about?
You know what's funny is that for whatever reason, like Greg Pak is having a lot of fun writing that, and people seem to be reading it because I don't see that many copies on the stand. Maybe what it is whoever's reading it is buying the few copies that stores are ordering,
or they haven't ordered as much because it sounds silly. But I like Greg Pak, and this is nothing against him.
Right? Exactly. It's just the concept. So apparently. It's going to be a 3-issue miniseries detailing what happens when the newly returned Logan and the Hulk reunite to take down the experiment that produced Weapon H. Whatchamacallit? Weapon H.
Weapon H, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is a thing. Jeez Louise. And last but not least, we talked about this earlier, or really alluded to it earlier, and that was the announcement of the new Daredevil creative team, which is one Chip Zdarsky and Marco Cicchetto.
Mm-hmm.
So coming February 2019. I don't know. Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not one to read Daredevil, but I don't know if you said I would check it out still. But I'm like, Zdarsky's kind of writing style leans a little bit more kind of towards like Jerry Dugan and more humorous.
Right.
So that's not saying he can't stretch out and change and whatever, and this could be dark and different, whatever. Because I mean, if Immortal Hulk has said anything, that what we know about what a writer does not detect what they always do.
Exactly, because there's a direction that a writer can take a character, and it'll be just vastly different from anything we're familiar with from that writer's, history.
Exactly. So that's the thing, we don't know. So that was not me judging. I'm just like,
right.
That's an interesting choice for a creative team.
Right. I mean, I love Zdarsky's Spectacular Spider-Man.
Right.
And that was not in the same vein as, it wasn't all hilarity all the time, because it did deal with some, pretty weighty stuff. So but it definitely did, have more of a comedic sense to it. So I definitely sense where you're going. But Checchetto's art doesn't lend itself to that. So that's why I'm kind of curious about this team up between these creators.
Right. Which definitely says like, okay, they're something's definitely going to be the case, because a character like Daredevil, a little more humorous, is kind of out of the realm of the character. But at the same time,
I was going to say yes and no. Like you said, it depends on the creator. Like Wade's take on Daredevil was definitely much more lighthearted than Soul's, but now Soul, definitely took Daredevil to court, in a sense. Exactly. He had him in the courtroom a lot more, especially dealing with, some procedural stuff. So it was a pretty, technical take on Matt Murdock's law career. So it'll be cool to see a new take. I know Soul is, probably told the stories that he's wanted to tell for Daredevil, because that's the character he always wanted to write for Marvel. So I'm wondering what's next for him, if he's got anything else under the Marvel banner, or if he's going to go back to strictly doing.
I mean, he's still doing Dr. Evil, so
that's true.
So yeah, and I think he has a couple of things. He might have something. I feel like I've seen something about him doing something else in the Star Wars universe, also outside of Vader. I could be wrong, and he has written stuff from that. But I mean, another book, I'm not sure. But yeah, he's definitely doing Vader right now, and I'm sure at some point that's going to end. But we'll see.
Alrighty, and that ends our last segment of the show. So
I would like to bring up something though, really cool.
Before I do the last ad, okay.
Yes. So there is. Let me see. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of articles out there remembering Stan Lee and his legacy and all that kind of stuff. You should go check some of that stuff out. There's in our clickbait. So what?
No, I didn't see anything. Good.
Oh, okay. Must be some feedback or something. But so there's a couple of good articles in our clickbait section. If you got the show notes in the from the tweet that I put out, you'll see some of that in there. Some of what's noted is like Stan Lee's top 10 most underrated Marvel creations. Stan Lee reads the Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. There's an article about Stan Lee sharing what he loves about Spider-Man. There's an hour-long jazzy background music from the 1967 Spider-Man cartoon, which you should definitely check out because there's some good stuff going on in that. And some other things, but I just wanted to let you know about that. There was another article about a variant cover, but it is what it is. But it's a very good looking variant cover. So, but that's it. Now we can go into the ads.
Alrighty. So our last ad of the night is for Wink, the personalized wine club. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to Cabernet to Torrontés, Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Ever try an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your tastes and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and match to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel anytime. And now the listeners of the KLIQ Nation's Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us/wink. That's cspn.us/wink. Wink Wines through cspn.us. Do it today.
And as we close this out and I figure out what the heck is going on with my video for the rest of the night, probably not, because I won't need it. Regardless, we will say thank you for coming out to this show like you tend to do. There may or may not be some changes to how you get this show coming up. We don't know. I don't want to talk about that. I shouldn't probably have even mentioned that, but nevertheless, but stay tuned for anything. We'll let you know. Again, no show next week because of the U.S. holiday, Thanksgiving holiday. No, it's not just a U.S. holiday, but you know what I'm saying. So we won't be here. Maybe we might do something over the weekend. Probably
stay tuned to social media.
But definitely look out on the social medias. And that is as follows. You can follow me at Roddycat on Twitter and News Nerds Need on Twitter. The News Nerds Need Reddit. You can check that out there. CB Caps on Instagram. I've been posting a good bit of stuff in the last few days. Go check some of those posts out. Agent_70 on, excuse me, thank you. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. Tim DOGG98 on Twitter and probably Instagram, but I don't know if you want to follow him there. But do so because he's, hey, whatever. CB Cron on Twitter, The KLIQ Nation on Twitter, the KLIQ NATL, and also thekliqnation.com. And thank you. Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off. Go check him out over there. Click on the stuff and read it. And last but not least, PCN_dirt on Twitter. The Pop Culture Net on Twitter. popculturenetwork.com and ineedcomics.com. Soon to whatever the latest Vine will be next year, but stay tuned for that if you're interested. You can find this show on Google Play, Apple iTunes, Spotify. There will be a link in the show notes next week. And we need to really not start putting the show notes in with the thing, but I've been saying that for a while. Anyway, but go check us out on Spotify because that's where you'll find us now, along with the other cool kids. Just search Comic Book Chronicles. You know how to do. Also, if you want to go check us out, the CSPN.US, the Cold Slither Podcast Network. We are there along with other fine shows. Also, shop.cspn. You can go get some merch from this show and other shows. And with that, folks, we will see you on the next show, possibly week after next, possibly next weekend. Who knows? But hold your loved ones dear. Always check up on your peoples. And this is the KLIQ Nation's Comic Book Chronicle. And unless Agent_70 has something else to say, we are out.
I just wanted to add, rest in power, Stan Lee. Excelsior.
Excelsior, true believers.
Yes, face front, true believers. Peace. 1.